Okay, so the first question is the impact of Olivia Scanlon pleading the Fifth Amendment and the impact to this case, particularly your case or the prosecution's case.
Well, we're not surprised at all that Scanlon's attorney showed up to plead the Fifth Amendment on her behalf. We expected that to happen because, after all, it's our position that she committed crimes and related to this case in as much as she submitted a falsified check and then she showed up and testified that it was an accurate copy of the original, which is perjury. So it's not at all surprising that her attorney would show up and plead the Fifth Amendment so she doesn't incriminate herself any further. At the same time, of course, as we've maintained, that the prosecution, at least with regarding those allegations, there's the house of cards has crumbled. It's there's nothing there.
So in that regard, I mean, how can the Ethics Commission properly deliberate this case without that key understanding about the explanation about the two versions of the same check?
Well, our position is that there's going to be they have no choice but to dismiss as to those allegations or not sustain those allegations. There's no resolution. There's a cloud of suspicion hanging over that evidence. There's two versions of the same check. That's the key piece of evidence in the prosecution's case that has not been resolved. It's not going to be resolved. This was the last hearing in which we were going to have witnesses today. Scanlon's attorney showed up, pled the Fifth. She didn't want to incriminate herself any further. What could she possibly say? There's nothing to possibly say except that one of those checks was a fraud. And a fraud has been perpetrated on this commission and on the public by wasting hundreds of thousands of dollars in resources to smear a political opponent of a member of the Board of Supervisors.
Which leads me to my next question. You've made a lot of points about how this entire hearing is politically motivated. And it would appear today that you was cut off in many respects of actually asking questions that would elucidate some of the facts surrounding that, support that assertion. What is the issue here in regards to the political motivation behind this case? And what has brought us to this moment?
Well, a lot of things have brought us to this moment, and what I was trying to bring out in the evidence of Mr. Gallagher today was the political context in which these allegations arose, which is Mr. Hall left the Board of Supervisors, went to Treasure Island, was fired by the mayor, and thereafter, we find ourselves here. If we connect the dots, which it's not that difficult to do, which I was not permitted to do by the hearing officer, if you connect the dots, Board of Supervisors ran for election, Olivia Scanlon worked on the campaign, then went to work for Sean Ellsburn, Paul went to work for Treasure Island, got fired by the mayor, and the next thing he knew, he was the subject of an ethics investigation, which it turns out that the central basis of which is a fraudulent check, traced back to the aide for Supervisor Sean Ellsburn. If anyone would have been a candidate against Ellsburn in this election who would have definitely won or definitely put a very strong, would have been a very strong candidate against Supervisor Ellsburn, it would have been Tony Hall. And in fact, he intended on filing to run and then was not able to.
Because of this, because of the charges, because of this case?
The reason he didn't run this time around is more related to retirement issues and his pension than this case per se. But he also was going to run for mayor against Newsom in the last mayoral election and was forced to drop out because he was not able to raise the sufficient funds precisely because of this investigation. So this ethics investigation, if the intended effect was to ensure that Tony Hall was not a viable candidate against either the mayor or Supervisor Ellsburn, that objective has been met. And now we see that the entire investigation, at least anything worth considering, worthy of the public's time, was a complete waste. It was based on a fraudulent check, and the fact that Scanlon's attorney would show up today and plead the Fifth on her behalf only confirms that that is the case.
So it's surprising that the Ethics Commission...
No one wins here.
Right. It's surprising the Ethics Commission hasn't decided to just, call this case now and not waste any more of the public's time and money.
I've asked the commissioners to do that on multiple occasions, and they've declined. The hearing officer has indicated that the commission has every intention of hearing all of the evidence. They're going to make a decision, though. We know that on December the 8th. So we're
Which is after the election.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add?
Just that, this is the fourth time that the respondent and respondent's counsel has showed up for a hearing. Respondent showed up, Mr. Hall showed up for 2 depositions. We have cooperated, spent hundreds of hours in cooperating with the investigation. Thereby, Mr. Hall has demonstrated his respect for the law, for this process, and for the commissioners time and again, and continues to have respect for the commission, and we look forward to justice being done in the case.